Welcome to the Cinchuation Podcast, brought to you by Saddle Up. Saddle your horses, tighten those cinches, and join us as we dive into the heart of the Western equestrian lifestyle. All right, so welcome back to the Cinchuation Podcast. Today we have Morgan. She is a staff member here. We just discussed that you've worked here for about 6 months. Mm-hmm. You do body work. You're now a saddle fitter. You do listings for us, a whole gamut of things. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your background and how your journey kind of began with horses?
Sure. I got started in horses in 2019. I graduated high school and I didn't know what to do with my life, so I just decided why not work on a ranch. So I moved to North Dakota, of all places, and I worked on a ranch there. I liked it a lot, but I had no idea how at 20 years old I was going to get started in this. So I moved back to Colorado and I got enrolled in college, and I was a forensic science major.
Oh, wow.
So totally not in the right path, but I got another job working for a boarding facility, and I liked it. It was a lot more exciting than the forensic science stuff because I was so much boring studying. It was like, oh my God.
Lots of studying, yes.
So, my counselor was like, you should try to just do a science major in equine. So I changed my science major. I signed up for a bunch of jobs. I was working 4 different ranch jobs at once. Wow. I was taking lessons. I was just doing whatever I could to get going because I felt so behind, but. Yeah, I just kind of did everything I could find.
Yeah, just to get involved.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. I did not know that about the forensic stuff.
That
was cool.
Totally different career path.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
But
wow.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Like Criminal Minds, she's out there.
My grandpa was an investigator, so I was like, man, that kind of sounds cool. I'll try that out.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty cool.
But yeah,
it'd be a hard job too, though.
Very hard.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I don't think I could do with the people nowadays. It'd be so hard.
It's a very following your passion versus following something that,
you felt obligated to do.
Of
course.
Deal.
But yeah, then I, after I think 2 years of going to school in Colorado, I found a college in Wyoming, middle of Riverton, and their program was just riding. That's all you did. Ride every day for class. There was maybe 10 minutes of class time every day, and I was like, I'm not a good student. I'm going to go and ride every day and just get better at the skill and get an education at the same time. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I got
very hands-on. So what made you decide to go to North Dakota? Had you had experience with horses prior to that?
None at all.
So that's amazing.
We had a family friend that had a huge ranch up there, and I was like, you're never going to know unless you try it. And they were gracious enough to let me try them out, and I got to ride a couple times, even though I had no idea what I was doing. But yeah, awesome. They let me come out and try it, and it's definitely what started it for me.
Nice.
So
that's cool.
Awesome.
We learned so much about each other just doing these things. Yeah,
it's very incredible.
It is, absolutely. Awesome. Well, what style of riding have you done? And I know you've talked about you did some competing and showing, right? What disciplines did that kind of consist of?
So I did. It was just reined cow horse and ranch versatility that the school had.
Nice.
They actually started the team when we were there. My class was what made the team for the school.
That's
so
awesome.
It was our first time for anybody doing any of it. So it was kind of a mess, but it was a lot of fun. We got to go to Amarillo, Texas, and compete with the big schools down there, and we got our butts kicked, but it was a lot of fun and a good experience. But I've done mostly Western riding, mostly just ranch work, a little bit of roping. For the school program, we had to ride English for 2 years, and we had to jump at least 2 feet. Not a fan. Neither was my horse. He was 20 years old and had always only ever done ranch work, so he's like, you want me to jump?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Yeah, he looked so derpy in his little English saddle. It's not the look.
Oh, that's so cute. But like we just talked about before we started in the podcast, you learned so much more from those hard situations and, being the first ranch horse team versus if you had gone in there and it was a well-established, I'm sure you learned a tremendous amount more having to do it from the ground up versus something that was already there for you.
Yeah, and we had to...
And same with your horse having to go English.
Oh my gosh.
Because usually that's not, you'll get more of an English horse for that type of situation.
Yeah, the whole class, we only had 8 people in the class, and all of them were like super Western, ranchy kids, and it was like, what? And all of us it was not good, but it was a lot of fun, and made me appreciate the English riding a little more, because you have to have so much balance.
My dad, no offense, world, but my dad used to always say, if you want to do English, you can do it after I'm gone. But in that same tone, he would always say anyone that started out with English has learned more balance in their ride and in their seat than you do starting out in Western. So
it's a totally different thing.
I bet. There's just nothing there.
No.
I don't even
and
know
the
if I
saddles
know
are
what to
so
do.
uncomfortable.
Are they? Yeah.
It's terrible. It's like a 2x4. There's like nothing supporting you. It's just this rock hard seat.
Yeah.
And your stirrups are so short, and
it's very different.
it's not good. It's so terrible.
That's cute.
But
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I don't know. I've never ridden English. I don't think I could. I don't know if I know what to do.
could.
You think?
you
could.
definitely
I don't know.
could.
You could.
Loping is like the weirdest thing
my
in an
God.
English saddle, and you almost feel like you have to stand up. But
That makes sense. Yeah.
it's weird. It's really weird.
And that's my assumption would be with the shorter stirrups because of that. So that gives you
Wanna,
that.
like, sit up.
Yeah.
I'd need
it's-
one of those magic seats in an English saddle. Like just
Hold you
strap
down.
me in.
Yeah. I give them a lot of credibility, that's for sure. And,
Absolutely.
a lot of them not them, but a lot of English riders also say, oh my gosh, when they transition into a Western saddle, like, your saddles are so uncomfortable. So it's
Yeah.
just what you,
That's
you know,
true.
it's just what you
What you
are
know.
accustomed to and what you know for sure.
That's
Yeah.
a good point. Yeah, they're probably like, gosh, Western's so weird.
Yeah, we've had so
So
many
much
English
there.
riders come in here, and they're like, "These are terrible." What do you mean? It's so comfortable. Yeah.
Indeed.
That's funny. How did all of this horse experience, I know you said that you majored in equine science. Was that kind of what led you to starting your own bodywork business, or what kind of started that journey for you?
What started the bodywork journey was kind of with all the jobs that I was working, whether it was like the trail riding or the training or stuff like that. I kept finding people blaming horses for having bad attitudes or
That's heartbreaking.
you know, just being a terrible horse, when in
Yeah.
reality they just had a body issue. And I felt like people were just not willing to accept that. And
Yeah.
it made me really frustrated.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was like, you know, I want to learn about bodywork and the impact that it has on a horse. And once I had a chiropractor come and work on my gelding, and it changed my opinion completely of massage.
Yeah.
So,
What it did. Well,
yeah.
we have an employee that, in no disrespect to your trade, but we had an employee that had paid for body work for months. I had done a saddle fit for her for a larger draft cross horse. She got rid of that horse and then used the same saddle. And she's like, well, certainly if this saddle fit, I think it was Bubba, if the saddle fit Bubba, it's going to fit, I want to say Remy. No, that's her dog. So sorry. Anyways, she was having all these issues, and at that time she was not an employee, and she was paying for body work month after month after month. And once she started, I'm like, why did you never have me double check saddle fit? I went out there, like, this saddle is not fitting at all.
Yeah.
We got her in the correct saddle, and then she didn't have all those problems. And there's so many people out there that do, and what do I want to say, that do put the money out there because they care so much about their horse. But you've always got to fix your foundation, and then you can build on that. And bodywork makes your performance so much better. It makes your horse so much smoother. We're still going to, if you're an athlete, you're still going to have body issues and still need those massages and so forth. But if you're not fixing that foundation, so It's probably going to lead into more questions that we have for you, but that's just a huge, I always ask people when they're having issues with their horse if they've checked saddle fit. And sometimes that's not the issue, of course, but fixing that foundation so you can be more effective.
Right.
So,
Well, and you have to, I've learned when I was researching bodywork schools, you have to be careful which one you pick, because some of them just do it just to be like, how quickly can you do a massage? And they don't teach you to identify any problems in the horse. It's just like, how quickly can you do this sequence? And so the school I went through specifically focused on the rehab part and finding the root of the problem, that you couldn't do the massage until you've had an idea of what was wrong. And I really appreciated that, because
that makes sense.
I looked at so many schools where it's like, you learn the massage sequence, and it's like, what good does that do you? To just go rub a horse down.
Right. It's kind of like the quality over quantity.
Right.
Type.
It's like you're not doing anything.
No, that makes sense. That would be really difficult. Yeah, and I feel like that goes hand in hand what you're saying, like people blaming the horse, or they're labeling them as a bad horse, but really there's, like you just said, go back to your foundation. There's something, I mean, this is a really hard topic to discuss in the horse world. I do feel there are certain horses out there, they just have a bad attitude.
Yep.
They're not great horses,
absolutely.
but I feel like it's always worth diagnosing, just because it could be something. They could be hurting from a saddle, and it goes hand in hand.
Process of elimination. I will tell
Absolutely.
people, do not change too many things all at once. Like, don't start changing your bit and your saddle. You've got to start with that process and start, building off of that to figure out what the true basis is. And, I feel like our industry is the same, meaning there's a lot of places out there that are just there to sell saddles and, not worry about those horses. And it's not something that I could ever do. It's so wonderful and refreshing to have you on board and having those same qualities and ethics that we're looking for.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's huge. For your schooling, what all did that entail to get certified, and then what steps did you have to take to actually build your company, like your business?
So to get certified, it was a 6-month course where they did, it was online, but they sent weekly things where you had to study and you had to take tests out of each section to get to do the next thing. And then at the end of your 6 months, if you had passed all your tests, you got to do a 7-day hands-on course where they taught you the sequence, and then you were tested on your ability to massage. I was like 3 horses at the end. And so we did that. My class was small, and we were able to do, I think, like 35 horses in 7 days. And it taught me a lot. And with that, I got to do my certification at a ranch in Wyoming that I had worked for. And so that kind of gave me my base to start my business, because I knew them. I got to work for them for the massage. And so I started there. And then as I moved around for the rest of the year, I had lots of jobs last year. Each one kind of gave me the opportunity to do more massage, and then I just kind of built up from there.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. And here, too, you've helped a lot of people and just given a lot of good feedback for saddle fit, stuff. Like, I've learned a lot from you, like, as far as, like, you taught me looking behind them and seeing, you can see the difference, and then just the things that you've pointed out.
Yeah.
I think that was our first saddle fit you and I did together. It was that gray horse. And we could not figure out why these saddles weren't fitting, and you found that there was, an injury and stuff. And so stuff like that does really change how saddles fit too.
It's changed so much. Just working here has changed a lot of how I am doing my saddle or my massages, because so many times it is the saddle. And since I've been able to feel the underside of so many saddles here, when I go out and do a massage, I'm like, oh, this is your saddle. It's pretty obvious. It's like the exact shape of your tree. So it's made such a huge difference seeing that.
Feeling, especially coming out in the loin area and getting that clearance in there, I think that is something that I hate to say it, most saddle makers don't even realize that that is an issue. It's sitting on there and they think it's fine. But if you have that resistance, it is such a pressure point, and those horses get so sore. So, I will just say, to change Bill's concept, you have done wonders working with us, because Bill, love you to death, but he doesn't, he's never believed in chiropractic, and he's never believed, and you have really changed his outlook on.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Wow.
yes. So, that's wow.
Yeah.
It's hard to change an old cowboy's ways.
It
So,
is, but you
and their
have,
thought process. So, yeah, absolutely. And, I think as we continue down this journey, they will go hand in hand with each other. And even at some point, if you take your wings and fly, and you go independent with what you're doing, and not doing saddle fits for us, it is going to benefit you for the lifetime of your career. So we're so proud to be here with you now.
Yes, absolutely. Bill, no, seriously.
That's shocking.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it is.
She's only worked here 6 months. She's like, wow.
Yeah.
That's funny. I guess one question I had too, I guess it could go hand in hand, so I'll kind of combine the next two questions. But what are some of the most common body issues you see, and would you say a lot of those are due to an ill-fitting saddle, or more like injuries, or what kind of thoughts do you have on that?
From what I have done, a lot of the issues I'm finding are poor fitting saddles, because people are just not informed on it anymore. And people aren't educated on how to fit a saddle, or what the effects could be of not riding in a good fitting saddle. So, I've done a lot of work on like dude ranch horses, and those saddles never fit.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what I see is like really sore shoulders, sore loins, that would be the biggest things I see, and it is usually due to the rider or the saddle. You do get horses injure themselves all the time, obviously, but a lot of times it is due to just people not knowing.
Right.
So.
Right. You've really opened my eyes to like how you're saying the rider, and no like disrespect intended to riders out there, but how your body position, how your horsemanship, like how that can, even if you have a good fitting saddle.
Yeah, it makes a difference.
Do you want to touch on that a little bit? Like,
sure.
Yeah.
Horsemanship is very important when it comes to your horse, because even, like you said, even if your saddle fits, if you're not riding as an active, balanced rider, you're going to mess your horse up. If you're leaning forward, you're going to cause shoulder issues. Their neck's going to be sore from trying to hold you up all the time. If you're leaning back, you're going to be sitting on that loin. They're going to get sway backed over time if you're doing this for years on end. They're going to throw their hips out of alignment. So, the saddle fit is important, but rider position is a huge thing, and making sure you're riding as an active rider and like holding up your own body weight.
Yeah.
And then another thing I see a lot is riders not realizing what they're doing with their hands. So they'll be riding in their mouth, and you get horses that are sore in their neck because they're riding over collected all the time, or their heads are too high, It's just
kind of that like bracing, like it's all that tension in their neck and stuff. That makes sense. I didn't even think of that. You know? Yeah. That you have made me more aware when I'm riding, because sometimes I do tend to want to, like, I don't know why, you don't even realize you're doing it.
It's hard.
But I catch myself and I'm like, no, be in the right position. So because you don't even think of that. You think if your saddle fits. I mean, it's fine,
one thing I've learned to help with that is if you don't have someone that's able to watch you ride and kind of see those little things you're doing. In the school I went to, they had you film yourself riding.
Oh, wow.
And then rewatch it, and so you can see when you're not even realizing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then it makes you just more conscious and be able to fix it. So we had to do that for. I got certified to do teaching lessons for Western and English, and to do that, you had to film yourself and find out what was wrong with yourself, as well as lots of other people. Yeah. And so, I found that to help a lot.
That's a great, I don't know, that really opened my eyes. And you can honestly be one of like the best athletes in the world, but if it's something that you don't even,
if you don't know you're doing it, then you don't know to fix it.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's just super interesting, very interesting.
When we're helping customers sit in saddles here, we typically go off of the guideline that you want a finger to 2 fingers in between the swell and your thigh, and you'll get a lot of people that, don't like the way the seat feels. It feels new to them. And especially beginning riders, they want way more room in that seat sitting here on saddles than when they're actually out there riding. They are such different positions. So I do very much try to encourage people, you need to be centered in your seat. If that seat is too big for you, but I find it is a huge thing with beginning riders that they just want more room, not want to be snug.
And I see a lot of people when they come in here, they want to sit in the saddle in a way they wouldn't sit on the horse. And it's like, why would you sit
and
in
you
that
get
way?
a lot of people that first thing they do is throw their legs way forward. It's like, drop those down.
Bill's like, it's not a
lawn
lazy
chair.
boy.
It's not a lawn chair or a lazy boy for sure. And that's something he'll usually, just hold the small of their back and say, post, and then come straight down. And that's where you want to sit. And so, we all share and learn from each other so much. And then, it just stands out to me so much when you say, that horse riding with his head high. I've actually had people tell me, oh, that saddle's great. My horse rides with his head really high. And I'm like, no,
that's not
what you want at all. You want that head comfortable and low. I tell people all the time, if that saddle, if it has too much rock and it's hitting in the center of the back, they're stretching out their neck and they're trying to avoid pain. So, so no, you want them in a natural position.
Because then they're like hollowing their back out to get away from the pain. Then that probably causes more
pain because then you get pressure points.
It goes hand in hand. I don't think you realize. I didn't realize how much until I started working with you and seeing, and it's like, wow, that does. I mean, it just all goes and flows together. So absolutely. One thing I had a question on is, I know you've kind of talked a little bit about like the tools and the different techniques that you've done or you use during your body work. How do you decide or differ if like what horse needs what? Does that make sense? Like what they would benefit from?
Yeah, so what I usually carry with me is a red light laser. And then I have tape, kinesiology tape. And when I'm doing the massage, if there's like a really deep knot that I cannot get out with my hands, then I use the laser just because it's less pain on them and less damage on me trying to push that knot out. And so with the laser, it's usually just like tissue, like knots that I pull out. And, a lot of horses typically need the laser like 2 or 3 spots down their body. And then the taping is for like extreme muscle tightness where I can't sit there and massage the crap out of their muscle for the next hour because it's going to make it worse. And so the taping just brings blood flow to that area to kind of relax it over a couple days and let it happen at a more natural rate than me sitting there rubbing it and making more issues.
That makes sense. Okay. I guess it's just like us too. I mean, we get knots in our shoulders and backs and necks, and like so.
I'll have to bring that tape in sometime because you can use it on yourself.
Oh, really?
And it's really interesting what it does because it just like brings all the blood to that area and it just heals it in a more slow and comfortable way than like a massage would.
Wow.
And that's the kinetic tape?
Yep.
I always thought it was to not overextend your muscles that you tape up, and so when I was having, so now I want some more.
Yeah. I remember you wore it when you had your frozen shoulder.
Trying to get that.
Yeah, it can be used 2 different ways. It just depends on how you apply it. It can either be used to like support a muscle or to help bring blood flow to it. So it all just depends on how you put it on their body. And what kind of tape. There's lymphatic tape, and then there's like different types of satin, or I'm not sure what the other one is, but the type of tape affects what it does to the body.
I see a lot of people riding with it.
Yeah.
Is that like beneficial or,
Somewhat. A lot of people like to just slap it on before a performance, and could help a little bit, but I think it's something that has to kind of just sit over time and
It's more of a maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can ride with it. My mare had tape on for like a week, and I rode her with it, and it just helps keep that muscle loose as you're riding.
That's very interesting. I've seen a lot of it. I've just never tried it, so
Yeah.
I always thought it kind of.
Is your red light therapy too powerful for all of us?
No, it's actually a human laser. It's a human grade laser, so I use it all the time.
Tana's like,
hey.
Yeah.
We need to have a conversation.
That's funny. Oh my gosh. No, that's very interesting. I guess too, we get a lot of people that they come in for saddle fittings, and I know you've had a lot too. They either, I would say usually they say that they've had them chiropracted or worked on before. But my question is, because in my mind, yes, it does make a difference. If we fit a saddle to a horse today, and they go later this afternoon or tomorrow and get their horse worked on, does that affect then how that saddle was fitted?
It definitely could.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot in massages where their top line fills out more. So if they do have some kind of atrophy and then you go in there and rub it for a couple hours, it does make them swell out a little bit because it kind of releases that muscle. And so it definitely can change the fit of the saddle after a massage, for sure.
Yeah.
So,
is there a recommended process? Like, I do have some people that say, I'm going to get my horse adjusted before I come in for a saddle fit. And I would think, because how many times have we looked at those backs and that hip is higher?
Yeah.
The one that we just did last week where, we had to shim just the center of that one side to alleviate a little bit of pressure. The other side was perfect. Like, in training them how to do certain exercises to level out that, or it could just be the way that horse is. You don't know, what previous injuries or what they've done. In your opinion, is there a process that would be best, like to recommend before doing saddle fit? And sorry, I'm going to add on that too. We have a lot of customers that their horses are ridiculously sore and they refuse to give them time off before we do the saddle fit.
That's
and
a
so
huge one.
It's a huge one.
Yeah.
If they are tense, like when you try to feel my shoulders after a week of stress versus, right after I came back from a nice long vacation, they're going to be way different in how that feels and how, I'm holding them up here instead of relaxing and being down. So that was a lot, but do you think that there's a process or, if people's horses are very sore, say, give them like 2 weeks off and do a chiropractic adjustment and massage, or, what would that process look like if you made a recommendation?
So if they suspected their horse was sore and they knew their saddle wasn't fitting before coming in, I would probably do 1 or 2 massages before, just to get their muscles to relax, and then you have a better idea of what their back is truly like. A lot of times when they come in and they haven't done a massage yet and they're sore, they're not going to like the saddle fitting, and so you're not going to get a true idea of if it fits them and if they like it. And so I would definitely say have them do a couple massages, if they suspect that their horse is sore, just to help it be a more even, true fit. But a lot of times they don't know because you don't know what you're looking for. And so, I've told people when they come here, like, your horse needs to be worked on because they could change a lot once this issue's gone. That saddle may not fit anymore. So it just really depends. And it's hard to say people should get a massage before coming because if you don't know what you're looking for, then you just don't know to do it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think though you're right. I mean, how many times have we had somebody come in for a saddle fit, whether we've identified the horse as sore or not, but they have had an ill-fitting saddle for a long time. We find a good fit, they take it on trial, and the horse is bucking. And it's, well, I mean, there's so much that goes into that, like you're saying. What if they're just so sore?
So it reminds me of when I talk about going up to the Rocky Mountain National Park and riding that horse for 9 years, and it just go, 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 go. the first half hour in the saddle that I fit is doing the exact same thing before all of a sudden, hey, I can stretch out a little bit. So, that memory behavior, or I will have people say he's still reaching back to bite me. Well, that memory behavior in a horse is huge, and you have to relearn that. If that's all they've known is pain when you saddle, it's going to take a while for that to dissipate. So I would love to, do better by customers if there is recommendations, but it's always, a very scary dance because you don't want them to think you're just upselling things that they don't really need. But, these are living, breathing creatures that tolerate an immense amount of pain. I mean, 9 years, not a single issue with this horse. She just thought that was the way he moved.
Right.
It's amazing. It's
amazing.
amazing.
It truly is. So. Yeah. No, I think giving, and the time off is huge too. I wish that was a bigger, and I've been there when you're entered in something or you're actively showing, competing, but at that point I feel like you need to take a step back and realize this is a living, breathing creature literally doing this.
Its heart and soul to me.
Yeah, it literally owes you nothing. Nothing. But that's what we use them for. So take a step back, give them some time, and then, but I feel like that's a super common thing that we run into, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, and even when I've done massages, sometimes their horse is like dead lame the first time I work on them, and people assume that because I worked on them for 2 hours, they're going to be okay to ride that afternoon. And it's like, this didn't fix the problem. This is going to be like a week, month-long thing to fix this horse. And people just don't want to listen. They just want to be like, you did work on him one time. He's good to go now.
Good to go,
He's cured.
I've been there. I've had to have neck surgery. I've thrown my back out. It was not a one and done maintenance issue. I had to repeatedly, do massage, do chiropractic work. I mean, it's, there's a reason that they say I need to see you again this week. Like things, when you are that tense, you can start to loosen them up. If they don't, and I'm speaking to the choir, but if they don't continue that maintenance, they're going to lock right back up and be in the same place that they were. So, it's a
absolutely,
it's a very real situation for our wonderful horses.
Our ponies. Yes. I know, they're so amazing. I guess one thing too, like as you continue training to become a saddle fitter, which you're doing amazing, by the way, what's the most interesting thing that you think you've learned so far?
I've just been shocked by how saddles don't fit. The trees, the older saddles, the trees are just so different shaped than the horses we have today. And, saddle makers are not listening or understanding that you have to change it. Our horses are so wide all the way through their shoulders and their back that no saddles are fitting, and it has shocked me how many I can go through this whole store on some horses and they just don't fit anything.
Just don't fit in this section that we're sitting in right now, the ranch section. Love all my saddle makers, but come on, guys, get us some wider, ranch, especially the flatter bars. Get rid of so much rock and allow those horses to have that freedom of movement that they need. It's
I feel like anytime, I don't know about you guys, but whenever you go out, you see the horse, it's like this moose,
and they want a rope.
They're like, I want a roper or a ranch cutter, and I'm like, okay. Oh my God, please. It's so bad, but it's true. I mean, they're tricky. I feel like our barrel saddles right now too are the same way. If somebody's wanting a barrel saddle, I'm like, okay, let's see what I can do. Because you're right, and the horses are wider, but then there's also all of these crosses. That is just. That's insane. What blows my mind every day. What was that one you did? It was like a thoroughbred, gypsy vanner, Missouri foxtrotter or something. It was all and a melted into one.
Clydesdale crosser. I mean, I couldn't
crazy.
believe how many.
Oh gosh.
And that is way more the norm than having a straight quarter horse anymore. It's so hard. It is so hard.
No, it is. I feel like that wasn't a question I used to ask, and now every time, even if I can look at it and it looks like a quarter horse, I'm like, so what kind of horse is it? Usually they're like, oh, it's like a gypsy halflinger mini pony, like
Mustang thing.
Mustang
It's like,
Arab
oh, cool.
cross, and it's like, oh my god.
Wow.
And it really has gained huge momentum, like everything. When I first started in this industry with my dad, the internet wasn't even a real thing. Like, my dad was mad that I made a Facebook page. Like, I don't like that internet stuff. So we've grown. And saddle fitting back then, I used to take more of the older saddles, the name brands and so forth. And now it just, if you look at the life cycle, the length of a horse's life and how we are selectively breeding to all of these champions and just trying to get these ideal conformations, these ideal motors, these performance horses. Then you throw in the crossbreeding on top of that. Like, we have drastically changed. And so many people tell us all the time, it's so different. When I grew up, you threw a saddle on and you rode. Well, when my grandpa, to him, horses meant work, but when my grandpa had to go out there and ride, they had standard quarter horses. They were much more overworked and underfed, and there wasn't all this selective breeding and performance breeding. So it's just a different world. And we continue to try to make a difference, but in how we have our saddles built and what makers we purchase from, and trying to get better trees and so forth. So I feel that this will be something that will go hand in hand with you for the life of your business.
Oh, yes.
So
Absolutely.
It's a much needed industry.
Absolutely.
Standard instead of an exception.
It should be a standard. Absolutely. I agree. I guess, like Dan is saying, like in the future of your business and even in the past, what are some of the biggest challenges you've faced as a young woman in the equine and saddle fitting industry? Because we all know, but like talk a little about that and how you've like overcame that, or what that
continue to strive to overcome it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely hard because I hate when people ask me how long I've been with horses, because they hear, oh, you've only been doing this for like 5 or 6 years, then your experience doesn't count.
Right.
I also really struggled with having an education in equine science, because when I apply for jobs on ranches, they don't even care that I have experience. They see that I got an education, and it's like, well, she doesn't know what she's doing. She's just been reading a book about a horse. And so it's definitely been hard to get very far being a woman and starting later in the business, but I value my work ethic a lot.
Yeah,
and so I just show up and I do as much as I possibly can, and I try to always be learning and share the knowledge that I have just to help other people out.
Right.
So
No, I think that's a really good like game plan. You just, regardless of anything, you still show up, you do what you're passionate about. Your work ethic is like, I can't even say enough things about that. So I'm so proud of you for just being like, you know what? I'm done. That's my favorite thing. That's what you do to those people. I'm done. You just keep going and do your thing. But yeah, it is still very much a struggle. I mean, you get it, I get it, we all
get it.
And it's silly, but it is, age is a big thing. Like that, I've really had to like work with that, because same thing, you go on an offsite and people would ask, how old are you? And I mean, I don't even know how, like the youngest age I was when I was doing it, but maybe 20. And same thing, they're like,
it doesn't matter what you tell them, they're just not going to listen. And it's very frustrating.
So, it's hard to, gotten better as I've gotten older, but it is hard to kind of channel that out, and because it makes you kind of self-doubt, or at least I've really struggled with that. So
I would agree.
When I've struggled with it, a lot of things that have rang in my mind are those customers that have rode their entire life and told me I never knew a horse could move like this. And I have heard that and seen that time and time and time again. And for me, people often ask, so it's the same concept, just a little different. How can you not own horses and own a saddle shop and be a saddle fitter?
Yeah.
And, for me, it's proven results. I know, and that's why I'm so confident in what I do, where other people that ride, they know their horse will do what they ask, even though that saddle doesn't fit totally properly.
Right.
And, I think there's a lot of people out there in the performance world, I know there is, and their horses do what they ask, even though that saddle, like, I just want to go, oh my gosh, if you had something that fit, could you imagine what you guys could accomplish?
Oh, yeah.
It just,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
so it's a little different because I have a few years on you guys, but it's the same, it's the same concept of just being doubted. And you asked me the same question in my podcast, like in a Western world full of all these cowboy saddle makers.
Yeah.
I've had to prove my worth for sure.
Oh, and you absolutely have. I mean, yeah. You, like I've said, like the unbiased. That's the biggest. That's the key.
It's on results, and that's yeah. So proud of you.
Yes.
Because it's a hard industry for sure.
Absolutely. Kind of moving on to a different subject, which we've kind of touched a little bit, but what are some essentials you think people should, like, it should be a standard? Like, what should they be doing at home or just in their, like, day-to-day practices to keep their horse's body in, like, a better condition, better shape?
There's a quick check that you can do on your horses where, you run your hand along the kind of where the muscles meet each other, and you can feel knots in there.
Oh, okay.
And, just kind of being really aware of if your horse's body really changes quickly, if their attitude changes, just stuff like that. And, yeah, I mean, my horses, I always do just a quick check on them. I just push on their muscles, make sure they're nice and loose, so there's not visible knots coming through. And, if they start acting weird, then I just get off and I check everything and I evaluate what could be wrong, and 9 times out of 10 they slept on a rock or something and they're just being ridiculous. But just being aware of that, and I think it makes their relationship with you better. My horses trust me so much more now that I've been doing the massage, because they're like, oh my gosh, she listens when I don't feel good, and she checks me out. So my horses have actually started, like, pointing when they're like, hey, this hurts right here.
They're like,
that is awesome.
That's huge. That's a huge takeaway. When you care, the bond is...
They begin to trust you so much more when you listen to even just, like, their subtle discomforts. Yeah. So that's a big difference for me.
That, like, gave me goosebumps. That's incredible. And you're right, most people would probably label that as, like, a behavior thing.
They check these horses so hard with any bit of resistance, and it just, it's mind-blowing. People that come in and my horse isn't doing this and I need a stronger bit, I'm gonna put him in check, and it just it's
if they only knew. That's all I can say.
And it's what horses tolerate is beyond
it's
heartbreaking.
Insane.
No, we were talking about it yesterday, how it is kind of hard to work in this industry and then go out and compete and see things, because it sucks. There's if you would just be aware, you know, could you imagine people, like, the bonds with the horses, I mean, I don't know, just speaks in itself, I think. It's just kind of sad.
It is very sad.
Yeah. We kind of touched on crossbreeding and stuff, but do you feel like factors like age, injuries, or even crossbreeding, does that affect the horses that you've seen, like their backs?
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
If they're older in age, their recovery time's much slower.
That's true.
Yeah. They're much more likely to get injured and then hold on to that injury longer. Young horses are growing, so they're going to have weird pain in weird spots, and even if you massage it, it's probably going to come back. If they're like a super downhill horse, their shoulders are just going to hurt. And so, like, that taping I was talking about, that's really helpful, because that just keeps the blood flow going there, and it's not going to bunch up quite as bad. But conformation changes a lot with those crossbreeding. You know, they're not really caring what the other horse looks like. They just want color. It's usually why they do it, or for size. And so a lot of times you do get weird conformations going on, and so it's not something I can correct with massage, but I can help.
Right. Yeah.
So it definitely makes a big difference in the breeding.
Since you've been doing saddle fit and, you know, on that same concept, how does shimming at times make a difference for you? And have you been surprised by, you know, how a small shim here or there can change how that saddle fits and give that horse more freedom of movement?
Yeah, it changes a lot because, you know, you can see the atrophy on their bodies and you can fill it in with that shim, and, you know, it kind of takes the place of where that muscle would be until they can fill it out properly without creating weird pressure points from that saddle sitting on them really funky. So I really like the shimming in certain cases because I can see a huge difference in how the horses feel with them.
Would you say because of age, like, this is kind of a trick question and I'm trying to figure it out in my mind, there's a lot of times where, you know, I would say, it's kind of a tricky area, I hate to shim to, I will never shim to make a saddle fit, but there's certain conformation issues where you need to shim. Older horses, I would say when you start getting above like 15, 16, 17, a lot of times that shim is just going to be there. Like, and if they are already atrophied behind that shoulder, there's such a propensity for that saddle to slip, no matter if you have the nice rock in the front to fit that shoulders. You know, gravity is there and they're moving, and so it's going to want to slide down. If you shim, it keeps that saddle in proper position. So with that being said, I don't even know what, you know, where I'm going with that, but you follow
like a permanent, like, is it okay to be a permanent
fix
or, like,
and, you know,
which I kind of have that same question too, because you had to shim my horse, you know, and so I've wondered that, like, is it okay to be a long-term thing? Is it something that shouldn't be a long-term thing?
And when we look at certain horses, you know, versus killing ourselves trying to find saddle fit, should we just embrace more that, hey, this horse needs a little lift in the front? Like, I still struggle with the downhill horses and shimming to lift that saddle where it sits level. To me, that is not as important as giving them freedom of movement all the way through. So yes, you are riding your horse a little bit more downhill, but if you've got proper freedom throughout there, really, to me, that downhill should not cause them issues in the shoulder and so forth. So I don't know if you can even add on that or if I'm just rambling, but it is something that, you know, COVID really set us back. So I feel like where we're at now in our progression and, you know, our momentum as saddle fitters, we're just seeing, like, saddle fit has become our main, our niche. Like, we are doing 2 to 3 saddle fits. So right now it's a little slower, but even in the dead of winter, we sometimes have 2, 3, 4 horses in a day. I can't even begin to think what spring is going to bring for us again this year. But, you know, I guess my question is giving the customer the comfort that it is okay to shim, you know, having that conversation with them that you've got an older horse, we've got some atrophy, we've got some hollow in the back, you know, these are just necessary steps. So I think us working together to figure out what that looks like and having more conversations on that, because driving ourselves crazy when it's so hard, you know, and really they just need a little adjustment in how that saddle fits. We're using the tools that we have, and until these makers start coming on board or we find better avenues for trees, you know, we've got to work with what we have.
Yeah, well, I like the shim pads that we're using because it holds the shim in a place. I've seen a lot of people just put loose shims under a saddle, and I would not recommend using those for long term because they're always going to be moving with the saddle, and so it doesn't matter if you put shims in a certain place, they're probably going to shoot out the back at the end of the day. So with the shim pads we have, I would say they're okay to use long term.
And just a note on that, like we sell a lot of diamond wool shim pads, and I love the diamond wool shim pads. We've been selling them forever. And I love you guys if you're going to listen to this, but get rid of those 1/2-inch shims.
Yeah.
Start using 1/4-inch shims. That 1/2 inch is way too much.
Yeah, too
So,
bulky.
if I sell a shim pad, there is times where I've had to use 1/2-inch shims. Rarely though, it's not the rule. I'm so glad we buy rolls of 1/4-inch felt and we pull those out and replace them with that 1/4-inch. It's amazing what 1/8 of an inch has done for me at times when it comes to fitting horses.
Absolutely.
So that's a thing, and I think I don't ever want it to be the norm, but learning how to embrace it a little bit easier instead of being so steadfast on finding a saddle that 100% is perfect on its own, especially depending on the horse age, conformation, and
everything
and issues. So.
Yeah, I think it's a good, like you're saying, we have that tool, we might as well embrace it, I mean, and working, I'll be the first to admit, I'm getting better working with you guys, but like, same thing, I never used to shim. But to be fair, this was a couple years ago when these saddles in here, we weren't having such a hard time fitting, if that makes sense. Like, we could find, I remember when I was doing offsites on my own, I could leave behind 2 or 3 options for one horse, and that wasn't out of the norm. So the shimming aspect wasn't really something that I ever played with because I was really steadfast on just fitting how it was. And now that we're running into these saddles, again, we go through these waves where now these horses, none of these saddles are fitting anything. We have a couple top like contenders, as you guys know, but I've worked with you and Bill and you even on shimming, and you can feel the difference. So I think it's important to have the customers to reassure them. Feel with that shim under there. Feel it without, and then feel it with, because that made a huge difference for me.
The one that Morgan and I did last Friday, Morgan had worked and worked and worked, and we tried one more option for the gentleman, and the saddle was perfect except for one side, slightly tight front, slightly tight in the back. There was a lot less top line, a little 1/4-inch shim in that center, and you had freedom of movement in the front and freedom of movement in the back. And just that little fix made all the difference for the horse, and I believe the customer 100% understood exactly what we were doing.
Right.
And one of the things that I offer anytime that does happen as well is, have us recheck. Your horse starts changing attitude, like you're saying, get that connection, and your horse starts changing attitude, call us, we'll recheck it, no problem, no fee, we're there. So I want to, sorry, we're getting off of your hour. So sorry, you go ahead.
You're good.
Go
No,
ahead.
This is good. This is good
It's great stuff,
conversations,
and they just run hand in hand.
They do.
I mean, it's going to be a huge part of your business going forward.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's always going to be.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I've yet to come across a horse that I'm like not checking their saddle at a massage because I just want to know.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
What you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I guess one thing too, because there's a lot of it out there, I feel like in everything with the horse industry, but what are some common like misconceptions that you hear that people may think about body work?
Kind of like I touched on earlier, they think it's a one-stop fix-all. So many people think that, it'll take me one time. One massage, which usually takes me 2 hours, is not going to fix your horse. It is just going to loosen up and get their body flowing a little better. But, sometimes it takes 3 to 5 massages, and, they got to space them out over a month. And so that would be the biggest one I come across, is people thinking that I did it one time, my horse is good to go, he's cured of whatever he had. And it's frustrating. I understand massage can be expensive, but in the long run, your horse is going to last you so much longer, and they're going to appreciate that you fixed the issue.
Yeah.
So
No, that makes sense.
that would be a big one. And, even though I try to do as much as I can to fix, sometimes I have to recommend a farrier or a dentist or the vet come out. It's never just one thing.
Well, and I don't think people realize how much that all intertwines with the horses. So if they've got bad feet, they're carrying themselves in a different position.
Oh, yeah.
So, they're getting high on one end and tight. If they have jaw issues, that all results in their neck, which goes into the
Or
back.
even their pole, like on their head,
Yep. So all of it plays. So
Yeah.
that's a huge piece is, the whole circle of maintenance.
Absolutely. Maintenance is a good, because it's true. If you're gonna, I feel like even if you just have them as a pasture pet, there is some level of maintenance that
Yes.
should be standard.
Yeah.
It just should be.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, of course. You always want their feet being done on a regular schedule, and, teeth are really important. I see so many horses that have jaw problems because nobody ever checks their teeth. And that affects their whole body, like you said. And,
Absolutely.
a lot of behavior issues become from the teeth.
Yeah.
Some people, they got hooks in their mouth, and they're shredding their mouth, and you're trying to stick a bit in there, and
Then you're pulling on it.
you're pulling on
it's
them.
just a
They can't
mess.
eat. They can't maintain a good body weight.
Yeah.
So, it's all important, and it's good to have like a good team that you can rely on that, is focused on doing the best for your horse and not just getting the job done.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah.
Would there be recommendations like, Ronnie's creating a business that, beginning horse owners, these are the basics of what you need to know, tack and so forth. I think that the horse industry, people just get enamored with these horses and, I love them, I want to own a horse, and don't realize the financial responsibility. But what would those, basics look like? Yes, you have to get a vet check, but, going through, getting their teeth checked, getting their body checked, getting, farrier in check. And that's a struggle too, especially when we have customers that come in and are in those roles, and we know that they don't always do the best service for the customers. So the horse industry can be a very, very shady industry, and so and then it's hard to get credibility for people that really care, because there's so many people out there that just can't tell you the amount of trainers that they learn to ride a horse and now you're a trainer. Just saying.
One thing that on the new horse thing, which this is, we're all horse people, I'm not going to say anything crazy, but one thing that drives me nuts that I feel like people should be more educated about when you're buying geldings or studs, clean their freaking sheath. And I'm sure that causes, I can't even imagine, that could cause so much issues, like if they have beans or if their sheath is, not clean, that's
I'm sure
horrible.
that can cause swelling in lots of areas.
Or like even, could it cause issues in like their loin if it's that bad?
If it's pretty severe, they're going to compensate in their in their hind
because
end.
they're gonna stand more backwards, and so it arches that back, and that's going to cause pressure. And my eyes when I'm doing a saddle fit are like, I'm feeling, but I'm watching. I'm watching for those feet just constantly. And you do see a lot of horses when you're doing that saddle fit that, they either got that legs back or they're cocked, and you can't get them to, they always do that. Well, let's get to the foundation. Why do they always have a leg cocked? Why are they not wanting to stand? Yep. So those would be a great time to make some recommendations.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I know we have a couple times with the sheath thing too, like that drives me nuts. I don't know why. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't do my own. They won't let me. But take them to the vet when they get their teeth done.
You just get them
do
cleaned.
it once a year. That's what you don't have to do it like every day, every 6 months. You can, but that's huge. Like, I feel like, and a lot of horse people don't know that.
No.
They just don't know. So yeah, there should be like a manual that everyone
first
gets
time
handed
first
out.
owner.
Yeah, here you go.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, seriously.
There's some TikTok videos coming our way.
Ooh,
yeah. turn off the comments.
Could you imagine me out there with like a bucket of water?
No. We're not going to go there.
Get my head kicked off. I'm not doing that. That's hilarious. Horse owner 101 first.
That's awesome.
That's great. I guess on more of kind of a fun, positive note, do you have like a favorite success story or like a client or a horse that's really just stuck with you?
Yeah, I think it was one of the first ones that I got to do for my certification. It was a horse I had gotten to ride the year before. He hated bits. He had a huge issue with anything in his mouth. He was super touchy about his head. And when I got there for my certification, he was the first horse I got to work on.
Aww.
And I realized after doing my massage that he actually had a broken bone in his jaw that explained why he didn't like a bit. And it was just kind of like a full circle moment for me because I'm like, we keep blaming this horse for having a bad attitude or just being quirky when he had an issue. And this is like why I started doing this.
Right.
So it was kind of like, wow, I finally am fixing what I wanted to start this for.
Yeah.
So
you're like doing what you like set out.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's
but yeah,
insane.
he had a broken hyoid bone and it's just like floating around in his jaw.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Nobody ever checked him, never knew to look, and everyone was like, he's just a weird horse that likes to stick his tongue out, and I'm like,
Foundation, people, foundation.
Yep.
You know, one of the things that my dad used to say, and there's a lot of things that he used to say that stick in my mind, but one of the things that he used to say is there's no bad horses, just people that made them that way.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
No, it's true.
That's heartbreaking.
That's heartbreaking, yeah.
And they're treated as such. You know, they're treated like they're a four-wheeler. They're not.
Yeah.
You know, it just, there's a lot of good ranches out there, and there's a lot of places, you know, like where you went and did the body work that are changing their ways, and they would rather have a synthetic and leather saddle because they can afford that and they can afford more of them and they'll fit the horses than keep riding in these, you know, 50-year-old saddles that are just causing them so many problems. And yes, those horses are their paycheck, so to speak, because you know the number of rides they can get out of them, but the awareness of if they have the proper body work, the proper saddle fit, the amount of miles that you can get without causing them damage is huge. So
no, I agree.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. I can't believe that.
Yeah, it was interesting to see. There were a lot more horses that ended up being like that. A lot of them were saddle fit, you know. We had horses that were like randomly bucking, doing random things, going downhill. They'd buck, only downhill. And it was like, well, this is the weirdest thing. And it was just saddle fit.
Yeah.
And thankfully that ranch that I was working with was really receptive to it, and they were going to change out all their pads, and they were going to try and buy new saddles, and they were going to have us keep coming back to do the school there so we could keep massaging them and learning more. And so it's nice to see some people really do care.
Absolutely, and be receptive
Yeah.
of it. No, for sure. I think it's kind of a fun question, but I just wanted to ask you, in your whole experience, all the different things that you've done, what is the best piece of advice someone has given to you that you could share with other horse people? I know that's kind of a broad one, but...
Probably the best advice I got was to treat your horse like your partner.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's awesome.
that
That's
needs
true.
to be a tagline.
That should be.
Is it a tagline on your business cards?
It could be.
It
could
needs
be
to
said.
be. Yeah. And tell us really quick, what is your business name, and do you have a website?
I do. It's just the MH Rehab and Equine Massage.
Perfect.
Okay.
It's on Facebook. It's
I'll
the only
link
one I
it.
got.
I'll link it in this video.
'Kay.
So,
Yeah.
yes,
Awesome.
absolutely. Cool. Do you guys have any other questions or anything else that you want to talk about?
I just want to say we're all very cool.
We are. We're some
like
cool people, man.
it's a great partnership.
It is.
I know we're one, small tack shop in Colorado, but the difference that we're making for people and their horses is what What keeps us going. It keeps us going. It's not easy, but it takes people like us. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you guys. Thank you both for being here.
And of course, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you. I learned so much about you. It was super fun, and we love having you. So
Thank
you
you.
rock. All right. Well, that concludes this episode. So we'll be back next time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to give us a like, drop a comment, or subscribe to keep up to date on new episodes. See you next time.